Welcome to Almost Here, Round the Corner Future Technology podcast with Richard Jacobs. Future technologies poised to transform our lives for better or worse are the focus of this podcast. Almost here means these technologies are now here and starting to be used, or just around the corner, from Bitcoin to artificial intelligence, 3D printing, blockchain, virtual reality, and more. Hello, this is Richard Jacobs with the Future Tech Podcast. My guest today is Katie Edwards, an author of books in the tarot sequence, such as Hanged Man and The Last Sun. Katie, how you doing?
I'm doing very well. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Even though you may not consider authors to be future tech, I do, especially science fiction ones. So that's why I wanted to speak to you. So, can you tell me a little bit about your background and how you got into writing? What were you doing before you were writing and what led you into it?
Oh, man, I can't even remember that far back. That's something from the very beginning. I've always wanted to be a writer. Since I was a little kid, I remember even writing newsletters for our household that I would publish. From the start, I was just kind of entranced by stories. So I literally can't remember when I wanted to do it. I know that about 5 years ago, I finally made the decision that I wanted it to be more than just a hobby. I did it in my spare time. So I really set out kind of training myself to write the novel I just wrote. I have a couple novels sitting in my drawer in my study, which will never see the light of day. But it trained me to the point where I finally was able to write The Last Sun, the first novel in the tarot sequence. It's something I've wanted to do. This is an idea that's been in my head for quite a while.
So it looks like from the comments I've seen online and from other authors, they say you're a master of world building. So I don't know. Tell me about that. Do you think that's what you enjoy most, or you're good at, or why do people make that comment most of all?
Yeah, I will say that the people who've been reading my book and leaving comments are just absolutely incredible. I don't know if other authors have this experience, but these people have just been blowing my mind, sending me artwork and music that they think inspires them when they read The Last Sun. It's just been amazing. But for world building, that is the core of, especially the tarot sequence. It's pretty much the whole thing is an imagined world, and it's something that takes place side by side in very modern times. So the creative aspect was kind of a must. When you talk with writers, they'll say either you're a planner or a pantser, and I'm definitely a planner. I don't go into something without a massive outline, and usually a good 60% of that outline is nothing but world building notes, and probably half of those world building notes the reader will never see. It's just me understanding the confines and the limits and the restraints of the world.
So what's it like to engage in world building? Is it just, do you start with a premise and go step by step and things occur to you over time, or is it did you plan out everything and then just wrote it down? What was it like for you?
I think it definitely, the world developed over a couple of years in my head, and I'm a constant note taker. Wherever I am, I've got a digital recorder sitting in my car in case a note occurs to me in the car. I take notes on my phone. I have journals. I have online spreadsheets. I take notes constantly because when you're creating a world, even if you don't want to hit the reader over the head with a million details about the more boring aspects of it, you still need to have an idea of those boring aspects, such as currency, their economy. You've got to have an idea of what the social quirks are. And that's something that I put a lot of brainstorming into. And like I said, half of those notes will never make it onto the page, but I think it gives the world a little bit more of an authentic sheen because the reader trusts that I know what's going on. That's one comment I see quite a bit. A lot of people say, they're not exactly sure where I'm going with this idea, but they know I've thought it through and they know it's going somewhere. And a lot of times they're right, that I'm deliberately keeping stuff back because I do plan this as a series.
So did you get inspiration for world building? Are there any authors, it seems like, the Lord of the Rings, J.R.R. Tolkien seems to be one of the, most amazing world builders I've seen. But, how did you get into this? What's your inspiration?
I think I don't know how long ago, the early days of what they call urban fantasy or sort of a modern fantasy that takes place in modern times or city environments. And there are some just people who really started that genre, like Alona Andrews is a sci-fi fantasy author there. It's actually a husband-wife writing team, and they're mind-blowingly good. And Laurel Hamilton has been writing for quite a while, and Jim Butcher. And those are sort of my modern influences. But I think this this turn I took in my writing where I was focusing more on modern fantasy was all the way back to graphic novels. When they matured to the point you had the Vertigo imprint, and they had things like Neil Gaiman doing The Sandman and Garth Ennis doing The Preacher. And you're starting to see a lot of those actually come back in television shows now. But they were, I mean, the graphic novel series of Sandman transformed me. It gave me this idea that, wow, you can do something with teeth. You can create a world that has an edge to it. And that's pretty much, I would consider Neil Gaiman one of my first influences. Alona Andrews, I'm rereading her whole series right now. And I didn't realize how much she influenced me until I went back and started reading the first 3 books in her series. And to see that it really set me on a path.
So how has it changed your perception now that you've had to, create worlds and characters and write your own books? Like, now that you're doing it, is it what you thought it would be? Is it better? Is it, not as exciting?
It's been just an incredible experience for me because I have so many people reaching out and with nothing but positive things to say. I mean, I was really armored myself when I did this series because while I consider it mainly a sci-fi fantasy series, an urban fantasy, the main protagonist is gay. And I don't want to call that gay science fiction. It's just science fiction with a main character who happens to be gay. And when I put that out there, I was worried. I thought, maybe, people will think that this isn't mainstream. And my agent was the first one to shoot that down and say, Keith, this is absolutely mainstream. The world's ready for something like this. There are other examples out there. So it was a little bit nervous putting that out there because I wasn't sure what the reaction would be, but it's been far better than I expected. I mean, you asked, has the experience changed me? It's definitely taught me a lot about the writing process doesn't end with it getting published. I mean, half of it's just beginning. The next half is the reader response to it. And especially when you're doing a series, you've got to pay close attention to that because, they really gave me some, the reader feedback. While there's a lot of great things, some of them did, come forward with some critical feedback. And I've had to open my eyes and go, for instance, here I thought my series was so diverse because I have a main character who happened to be gay. And yet, numerous people have pointed out, yeah, but, you don't have any people of color in your novel, or you don't have any strong female protagonists. So it's been a learning experience, and it's definitely going to influence the direction some of the novels are going to take in the future.
Oh, do you feel like now you're going to try to make your novel inclusive of everybody, or do you feel like
the whole novel? Yeah, I think for the most part, the series is planned out. I know exactly how long it's going to be. I know what every novel's about. But within that framework, there were definitely some, like one of the readers had said, when it killed you, one of the characters is called Ciaran. Was there any reason Ciaran couldn't have been, a black man? Is there any reason that, one of the other characters couldn't have been more of a female with really strong traits that could have created that sort of dynamic female character? And there's no reason not to do that with some of the future characters I'm going to be bringing into the story. So I think you do have to be responsive to what the readers are asking for because they're giving you, anytime anyone leaves you a review on Amazon or Goodreads, that's a gift. That's someone who's taking time out of their life to respond, and especially if it's a positive response with some good information, and I'd be stupid not to pay attention. But and there's room for that in the story too. Even though I know what the main outline is for the novels, there's room for me to be more kind of inclusive in how I describe some of the new characters I know are coming on board.
Do you feel like you have to be, or do you feel like you had a gay character in the book as the main person? It seems like I don't know, that just opened the door to criticism instead of just not doing it at all.
Yeah, I think that for the most part, I think I want to do it. I certainly don't think I'm changing anything. I'm changing the foundation of what I plan. But there are ways to, kind of sharpen my focus. But it's certainly not, it's not as if it's running me off the rails and kind of redoing plot structures. I know that since I know where I'm going with the whole series, I'm very careful on how I laid out book 1 because there are echoes of pretty much every book that comes in this 9-book series in book 1. There are hints loaded through it that I don't think you'd even realize until you hit book 7 or 8. But so, that's already kind of planted that foundation.
Okay. Interesting. What other feedback, changed the way you think about the writing process or what you've created?
I think my writing process, I feel pretty good about it. I don't think I would do anything different with that. The only thing I probably want to do different for the 3rd novel is start much sooner. I am definitely not the quickest writer in the world, and I think that I definitely saved a lot of the novel towards, the last 6 months of the contract. And going back, I think I'd feel better if I put a lot more of a sprint at the beginning of the process rather than just kind of take my time for the first 6 months. Because then I'm also one of those writers who I really do enjoy the editing process afterwards. I enjoy polishing and going back. I enjoy, if I can get away with it, to actually stick my novel in a drawer for 6 months and not even touch it, so that when I go back and read it again, I'm not feeling as emotionally invested in some of the writing or the descriptions, and it's much easier to kind of trim stuff down and delete it.
So how long does it take you to to write one of your books, and and how long does the editing take? And I don't know, do you feel invigorated by the process, or does it tire you out?
No, I do feel invigorated. I think, while it seems like it takes a long time for me to write, the actual time I spend in front of the keyboard actually drilling out the words, pales in comparison to the brainstorming and the planning I do. So, and I love that process. And I have an incredible editor at Pyre, and they have an excellent copy editor who works with me. So on that end, I've got great partnership. And I think that you have some authors who, either when they first contact their agent or when the agent sends a book to a publisher, they know that there's a very good chance they're going to have to change large portions of their novel, that there might be requests of, we think you need to rewrite this or rewrite this. And I got to admit, I didn't have any of that. My editor, there was a lot of line editing, but there was no major changes to how the story was structured. So I consider that personally is probably the part of the process that complimented me the most. Like I felt really proud of myself that I delivered something that they considered close to a final product.
Nice. Okay. Do you think that the stories may end up becoming movies, or taking on going on TV, or making videos out of them?
I don't know. I do have a Hollywood agent, so there is someone who's representing me. But it's hard to think about that stuff. Even if you do get bites now and then, you really can't spend too much time thinking about it, because while publishing, people will tell you it's a long process. Like, between the moment you finish your book and it winds up on the shelf, many months go by. Whereas Hollywood tends to turn on a dime, and interest waxes and wanes. But if I had my way, what I would love, I would absolutely love to see this as an HBO or a Netflix series, or something really edgy they do on cable nowadays.
Gotcha. So how many more books in the series? Do you just have one more, or what's left in the series for you?
No, I'm imagining 9 books in the series, and they're kind of broken up into 3 separate story arcs. One of the things I do in the first book is, it's pretty clear that Rune, the major narrator, is not being completely honest with the reader, that there are things that he's liberally avoiding saying and things that he's probably not being honest about. And so the first 3 novels really explores the truth coming out that Rune's keeping from the reader. And also there are things being kept from Rune about what happened with this takes place about 20 years after his court fell, his father's court fell. And Rune finding out the truth behind that is about another 3 novels worth of the story arc. And then the last 3 are pure endgame novels. It's me really kicking the series up into its final marathon sprint.
So you had all this. You have all this in your head even when you first started doing the first book, or are you discovering the story as you write it?
Yeah, I don't have that good a memory, but I write everything down. I think the average book is about 80 to 100,000 words. I easily have about 350,000 words of brainstorming notes, if not more, probably more by now, because last time I counted it was over 300,000. So I have extensive brainstorming notes on the rest of the novel. That's one of the reasons I think that when I finally do sit in front of the computer, it's easy to pound it out, because I put so much work into that outline beforehand. It
makes sense.
Oh yeah, and there are some people who that would drive them crazy. They just outlining kills their spirit for writing the story. It kills their motivation. For me, it gives me a safety net, and it gives me a huge sense of comfort in what I'm about to do, because I know that I have some great details I don't even have to think of, because they're already on the paper for future scenes.
Have you interacted with a lot of other writers? I guess everyone does stuff differently, but is there a common way that people write these kind of books, or is it just all over the place?
I definitely have a close group of writing friends. I'm in a writing group. If I have to recommend anything to a new writer, it's to find a good writing group, because there's nothing better than to get constant feedback on what you're writing, and also to learn how to give feedback to other people. And there are 2 published authors on it right now. 3, someone else had self-published on Amazon. And once you get published, then you really start reaching out and learning, other authors. And you've got to contact other authors because they review your book and hopefully do blurbs on it, for instance, the things that go on the cover. So I'm starting to kind of dip my toe into that world. The idea of going to conferences and stuff that's still pretty new to me.
Oh, I guess there's conferences for everything. So there's writing conferences, right? Science fiction.
Oh yeah, there are tons, and I definitely need at some point. I would want to do that too, but right now my entire focus, because there was only 7 months between the first novel and the second novel getting published. So I had my work cut out for me. After the first one got published, I had to immediately turn to the second one and try to take that to the finish line. But when I'm done with book 2, I'll have a moment to breathe, and I can actually start thinking about things like conferences, like going and meeting other people.
Mm. You have a fan base that's building, that's like, jonesing for more books and reading them as soon as you put them out?
Yes, I feel very, like I said, the people who read my books are just awesome. I mean, whenever someone sends me like artwork they did of the characters, it just blows my mind. I mean, that I could have done something that affected someone so much that they wanted to create a picture of it on their own. Someone sent me a playlist, one of my readers, and even to this day, I listen to the music because she picked incredible songs that really reminded her of the characters. I don't think there's not a day that goes by that someone doesn't reach out to me. So it's pretty much like a constant ego-building high.
Well, that's really cool. Yeah, I've seen with, not necessarily with novels, but with video games, they become their own worlds, like a video game could lead to a book or leads to music based on it or to T-shirts and all kinds of stuff. It's weird. Yeah,
maybe even vice versa, because God knows, I would love to turn the tarot sequence into an open world RPG.
Yeah, that's what I started thinking. I wonder if how you'd explore something like that.
I'm a video gamer, so even when I was developing the series, I had Xbox controller mapped in mind for like the spell work and stuff. Like I know exactly how I'd want it to appear on a controller.
Really?
A lot of people have actually said that my writing reminds them about an RPG or even like a D&D campaign or something.
Huh. That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
have you thought about getting permission from your fans that created artwork and putting it on T-shirts and other stuff and selling that to kind of expand the universe of your books?
I do. I mean, I do put it on Twitter with their permission. A lot of times they share it with me on Twitter. The cover artist I love, Micah Epstein. I absolutely adore the work he's done. I love the first one, and I absolutely love the second one. So I do want to do more with that in the future. About a lot of authors will invest their own money in getting promotional materials. So as soon as, like I said, my entire focus has been on getting book 2 out. But when that's done, I'll start thinking about things like that. There's also, so many options that can go into the series based on tarot cards. So, I mean, that's an entire avenue, of material.
Yeah. I mean, you can make your own custom tarot cards from it too. Very interesting.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So has your perspective changed now that you're an author and, things are working out well? When you go to the movies, do you feel differently, or when you, see other authors that are very successful, like, I don't know if you love or hate Harry Potter, but do you see those kind of people? Yeah, do you see them differently now that you're an author?
No, I mean, sometimes, not really, because I've been off and on writing my whole life. So one way or another, I'm always kind of have an eye on the craft of what I'm writing. But I love watching great television series. I love going to good sci-fi movies. So it hasn't like scraped off the shine of that for me. It's not like I have seen behind the curtain and suddenly it's not as fulfilling. If anything, to be a good writer, you have to voraciously watch, read, listen. I mean, half of my work is literally just staying up on what other sci-fi authors are doing and it's brought in your own experience.
Huh. So what do you find is the hardest aspect of writing, or the whole process? The
sitting down and actually getting the words out. While I still love doing it, and it's always rewarding once I do it, getting the motivation after because it's obviously I still work during the day, coming home and getting that motivation to sit in front of the computer. That's tough for anyone, really, to balance what is kind of a full-time, writing is basically a full-time job in addition to a full-time job. So I think that the biggest task is overcoming inertia and the pull of the sofa.
What about the writers that go and hide themselves away from everybody in order to get writing done? Do you have to do that, or can you can you go to Starbucks and do it?
No, I definitely write in coffee shops. I have, even this morning I was at a coffee shop. I took the day off because I'm on. Hopefully within the next 7 days I'll actually finish novel 2. So I was working this morning, but I can definitely do that in a coffee shop because the energy around you kind of feeds me. It's never, having that noise around me doesn't bother me. But there are also weekends where, do you know what KOA campgrounds are? They're like a series of campgrounds they have across the country. You probably recognize the sign if you saw it. It's like everywhere on highways. But they also have these deluxe cabins, and you can rent one, and they have like all these, the linen and all the dishes in the kitchen. But I'll go there every now and then for a 2 or 3 day weekend, and just kind of get away from everything and unplug for a while. But that's always like a treat, though.
That's cool. Oh, very interesting. So you said your new novel will be done in about a week, you think?
Oh God, yeah, I hope so. Well, if I don't, my editor will probably have words with me. But I'm definitely running towards the finish line on it. And like I said, again, I have probably about. I mean, this is the craziest thing. I probably have about the part that I've already turned in about 2/3 of the novel or half the novel, and the remaining part was about 40 or 50,000 words. And I probably had 60,000 words of brainstorming notes. So like I've got one hell of a cushion of knowing what every scene is going to be and things that happen in the scenes. And one of my characters is like the comedy influence, and I have his one-liners already written down. So I've got everything in my favor to finish this in the next 7 days.
What I don't know if do your fans know much about the new book, like the title and what it's going to talk about? Like what can you say about the book?
Yeah, it's up on Amazon, and the artwork's up on Amazon. Pre-order is up on Amazon. And I periodically do publish updates, or I'll do snippets on Twitter. Twitter is probably the main social media thing I use about scenes or lines, or I'll give hints about something that happens. In podcasts I've talked about spending a year doing research on battleships for a story arc within novel 2. So I give hints now and then, and I've talked a lot about the first 3 novels being about learning more about what the main character is keeping from the readers. So I think they have an idea of what to expect, and the summary of it is on Amazon too. So the actual basic storyline, as I already mentioned, it focuses on Rune doing whatever he can to protect the teenager that he's the guardian of, Max, who has been promised into marriage to another court, and the other court, the Hanged Man, is a very, very bad guy. So that'll basically be Rune's foray to figure out what he can do to save his ward.
Okay, so people can go to Amazon now and order the book, and it's the title again is what?
The Hanged Man is book number 2. Book number 1 was the last one.
Right, the Hanged Man. Okay, so to make sure that's clear. Great. And when is Amazon set to release it, or that's still variable right now?
No, it's right now. Hopefully it's not going to shift. That's the only thing. If I don't finish the novel in time, they would have to shift that date, and that's the last thing I want them to do. I'm pretty happy that we're not waiting a full year between novels, and this is supposed to come out in January, I want to say 19, 20, 21, 22, one of the weeks around there.
Okay. Well, very good. So what's the best way for fans to get in touch, to ask questions and, I don't know, give you more insights and feedback? Sure.
Let's see. Twitter is something that I constantly connect with fans on, and it's at KDEdwards_NC. And then I have kdedwards.com, my own website, and at the bottom of the website, it's easy to connect with me through a sort of like an email form on there. A lot of fans email me, I email them back. But Twitter is probably the best way to see updates on everything that's going on, or links to different, like I threw up the deleted prologue on my Twitter webpage. It's actually pinned to the start of it. So I definitely try to do things like that every now and then.
That's great. Well, Katie, look forward to seeing more from you, and thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
You have been listening to Almost Here, Around the Corner Future Technology podcast with Richard Jacobs. Subscribe to this podcast, post a review to discover more future technologies that are poised to transform our lives for better or worse, such as Bitcoin, artificial intelligence, 3D printing, blockchain, virtual reality, and more.